In recent years, the Philippines has experienced a diplomatic revolution, reaching way beyond our comfort zones, geopolitically speaking. Of course, for a long time, we have been focusing on our relations with the great powers, especially the United States, our only treaty ally, but also with rising superpowers like China. But what's important with the Philippines is that we're also reaching out to other corners of the world, especially Europe, in recent years. But as far as Europe is concerned, there's a new star. And that star is a country that often doesn't come up in big geopolitical discussions. Now, this country has many similarities with the Philippines. It's a Catholic majority country. It had also the unfortunate experience of being colonized by other countries, bigger neighbors. It's a country that has also experienced a tumultuous past, including famine, war, and massive emigration. But nowadays, Ireland is a rising star. It's one of the wealthiest countries on earth. It has been experiencing robust economic growth, and with that wealth and power comes growing ambitions, including the Global Ireland Initiative. As part of that initiative, Ireland is reaching out to new countries, establishing embassies and diplomatic presence in countries such as the Philippines. Under the Global Ireland Initiative, the Philippines has become one of the new priorities of Ireland. And with growing diplomatic presence in the Philippines comes growing ambition in terms of pushing bilateral relations to new heights. And Ireland is fully invested in improving relations with the Philippines in all important dimensions. And of course, there goes geopolitics as Ireland, as a member of the European Union, becomes more and more active in this part of the world, the Indo-Pacific region. There's also economics as Ireland tries to expand its exports to the Philippines and also import more from the Philippines, another rising economic power in this part of the world. But more importantly, Ireland is interested in improving cultural understanding, people-to-people relations. We have so much in common with Ireland, and there's so much to learn about this country, and there seems to be, fortunately, interest by both sides to push our bilateral relations to new heights. For that reason, we have a very special guest today, someone who is in a perfect position to explain to us the past, present, and especially the future of Philippine-Ireland relations. Joining us tonight is Honorable Irish Ambassador to the Philippines, William Carlos. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here and delighted to able to reach out to people in this manner to let people know more about Ireland and why Ireland is in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's a long conversation. Thank you also for coming really well dressed and making me feel bad. I think this is the first time I've been semi-casual, and next thing I know, we are still in the state of the nation address mode.
I've been blessed. I think this is probably one of the best inventions.
It is.
I actually wore a suit, and I've been in a lot of hot countries, but I can tell you when it gets warm here, it gets warm. And I was wearing a suit, and I literally had to wring it out after the thing. So I wore these, and so not only are they beautiful, I'm not too sure on me, but they are. And it's a fantastic addition to my wardrobe.
It looks great on the Ambassador. Of course, I know that before coming to the Philippines, you served in the African continent, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll discuss that very shortly. But of course, the other reason I wanted to also talk to you today is, Ireland is a country that has been in the imagination of the Filipino people, us Asians. There are many things, including the hottest star nowadays, Cillian Murphy, among other notable people of Irish heritage who are doing very well. So I think it's fun to be Irish also nowadays. But you guys are technically the newest boys in the town, right?
As far as I know, we're probably the newest embassy. We had just opened in November 2021, and it's been a long journey.
Probably, so pandemic time you established here,
and then as we established here, you sort of wonder why we weren't here before this, and there's different reasons for that. But the whole issue for us is that it was an important steps for us, and they wanted to get the right mix of people to come in. It's when you start from scratch, there are different challenges to it. But I've talked to, we have expanded our embassy network by about 50% in the last 10 years.
Right.
And that, I've talked to all the colleagues, and I'd say the Philippines has been the easiest place to set up in.
Right.
And it's really useful.
What were the circumstances and the strategic calculus behind Ireland's massive expansion in terms of global diplomatic presence?
We have a strategy called the Global Island, and that Global Island looked at the way that Ireland could enhance its footprint globally. We're a small island in the periphery of Europe. We're a very proud nation, but we also want to reach out. It's a multilateral world that we live in, and we wanted to reach out, and we felt that we needed to expand further. Now, we couldn't do that before. In the 80s, we were closing embassies, and then, as we've alluded to earlier, the financial crash in 2009 led to closure of missions and non-expansion of missions.
Right.
So finances we weren't able to open due to that. As we started to catch our breath again and develop ourselves better, the priority came to open. And Southeast Asia, I find it amazing. I love geography. I love maps.
Right.
So if you look at from Pakistan right through to China, down to as far as Indonesia,
right,
50% of the world's population is there.
Right,
and it's such an intense and vibrant area. And as a nation who was colonized, we love to reach out and learn from other people. But we've had a history here. So the embassy came here, but we had missionaries here for over 100 years, and that continues today. When I meet people, they start quoting William Butler Yeats and talking about other famous writers. So it's fantastic to see that. But this is an official statement that we want to be friends with the Philippines.
Right.
We want to get to know the Philippines better. And the Philippines, they've informed me that they're going to be reopening an embassy in Ireland in next year. So that further enhances their relationship. And I know that President Marcos has visited Ireland on several different times, and they like the country, loves the country, he said, but we need to get to know each other better, both unofficially, politically, and also culturally. And I think that's the important way to do it. And culture is important. It has had a huge impact on us. When I was growing up and they'd say, will you do Irish dancing? And I said, no, I couldn't do that. That's very old-fashioned. One of the biggest things people do now is river dance. And it's a change of attitude. It's a confidence. And that's the issue, that confidence you have in yourself, who you are, confident. Going to UK in particular in the early 70s, you nearly keep your head down and afraid to say where you're from. And now 40% of all chief executives in the UK are Irish. Right. So it's that element of expansion, and because of that, we're an immigrant country. We have a lot of similarities with the Philippines. Yeah. But the 73 million people of Irish descent in the world globally.
A lot in Boston, I suppose.
A lot in Boston. There's Australia, and then you move across the UK. Yep. With Brexit coming along, there's about 3 million Irish passport holders in the UK now, and that's growing. And our population in Ireland is 5.1 million. In the island of Ireland, is 6.5 million. So we're small. Our population was in 1841 was 8.1 million.
Yep.
By 1922, when we got our independence, was 2.9 million.
You went through some horrible times. The famine and wars. Yeah.
And these periods were never fully understood or talked about.
Right.
Now, who wants to talk about tragedy? And you examine things again. And this is one thing that's changed a lot in Ireland over the last while, is that we're learning more about our history to understand it. History is one; it's not linear and it's not black and white. Right. It's not just this or that. It's a mix of a lot of different ingredients.
It's a mess. Sometimes it's a mess.
Sometimes it's a mess.
Yeah.
And so we've got to understand that environment better, and that's what comes in. When I was studying in school about 1 million years ago, we studied history, and we went up to 1916. That's when we had our Easter, what we call our Easter Rising, our revolution, our final battle against trying to get our independence.
This is First World War, towards the end.
Yeah, it was during the First World War, but and we had Irish people fighting with the British Army, and we had Republicans fighting for independence. And our history stopped at 1916 and then started again in 1966.
Right.
We didn't want to talk about the intervening periods, and we've come back to that, and it's quite enlightening. And in fact, some of the issues that you thought were truths, were. It's not they were lies. It's just what people understood it to be.
Yep.
And that's important. And to understand your history enables you to make better decisions about how you move forward, and also to understand what's important. And that's what comes with us in Ireland, is our value system is extremely important.
Yep.
having been colonized, we're very mindful of the way we talk to people. We don't like to talk down at people, or go like this, pointing people, telling them what to do. It's about expressing a partnership that where can we work together on things, and that's part of our multilateralism to engage. But they were huge steps for us, and part of that multilateralism came around in terms of looking at when we first got our independence. We opened up an embassy in the UK, but we opened up an embassy in the Vatican. The Catholic Church was extremely important then. We reached out to, in terms of the League of Nations. That became very important. That's how we first asserted our independence, making statements to the League of Nations. And then when the UN started, it took us about 10 years before we joined the UN. So in 1956, 1955, 56, of which the Philippines were founder members.
Yep.
I mean, you were way ahead of us.
Yep.
And that
the president of the General Assembly was a Filipino, Carlos P. Romulo.
But you've had that whole sense of being embroiled in significant moments in the history of the world of the 20th century. In Ireland, we call World War II an emergency.
Yep.
We weren't part of it. We were bombed several times, but we were separated, and we were very isolated. And when we formed as a nation, we had true reason to form. And why be independent? I mean, we were told by our masters that we're not good enough to manage ourselves. That's why we need to be managed. And that's not true. People are allowed to determine their own destiny. But we formed. We said that we want to have a united Ireland. We want to have our language expansion. We're going to be the best Catholic country in the world, and we're going to believe in the concept that we can produce our own goods. Import substitution model.
Right.
Well, that was not the way to develop, but that's the belief of our founding fathers that that's how we wanted to do things. And we had to move forward. So by the late 50s, that started to change. Visionaries in our academia, our civil service, and our government that triumvirate got together, and they came out with a policy of 1958 of that we have to be outward looking, not inward looking.
Right.
In 1958, the year I was born, I'm ancient. 2.5% of the population emigrated. That's 150,000 people of a country that the population is diminishing. And the government said at the time that if we want to do something, we'll have no one left in this country. We'll have no one left if we don't start trying to create jobs for people to stay and remain in Ireland.
And what were the reasons for emigration? Is it the same as the conflict, war, poverty, famine?
I actually think the key element of emigration was opportunity. There was no opportunity.
Greener pastures.
Rural Ireland, it's a combination of greener pastures, but the opportunity, there was no jobs.
Yeah.
And those that had jobs were lucky, and a lot of people left. Other people left because they didn't believe in the politics, because it's still post-Civil War. There was a lot of tension there. People left because they didn't believe in the religious philosophy that was combined there. It was quite harsh. And other people left for opportunity. Right. I had a lecturer in university. He was our economics lecturer. And we're sitting there listening to him, and he was Welsh, and he was talking about the whole aspect of post-famine. Famine happened in Ireland in 1841 and finished in 1843 to 47. And he said in the 1850s, he said only the stupid people remained in Ireland. And we were all sitting there, only the stupid. Hold on, that's us.
Yeah.
But you ask yourself the question, what the horrendous tragedy that existed, that fell upon us, where we lost nearly 50% of our population through famine and emigration. The whole issue is why do people stay? Why do even that number of people stay? So the policies had to move beyond that. What you stand for. The Irish language is extremely important. Sadly, only about 10-15% of the population speak it.
Right.
A lot of us study it for 10-15 years, and we're not as engaged with the language as we should be. I find that a great loss. I think the Irish language, it's a beautiful language. Poetry and the literature is fantastic, but it's something that our colonial masters thought that if they could kill the language, they could kill the culture. But we're more than that.
We're speaking of the English, right?
Yeah,
or the British.
Yeah.
I mean, to be particular, because I appreciate this explanation, this overview from you, because as Asians, as former colonized people, it's rare that we talk to a European and a European telling us about their own history of being colonized. And in your case, in a way, it's not only traumatized nation, it's a delayed nation. I mean, you came into the picture, right? I mean, in the middle of the 20th century, in terms of modern nation state recognized by the UN system and all of that.
Finland and ourselves are one of the first in Europe to move from. I mean, the Finns, incredible nation as well, and
their situation with Russia,
their situation with Russia,
Sweden,
they got their independence in 1917. We started off in 1916, but we were the first. I mean, if you rule out the US in 1776 when they got their independence from the British, but we were the first nation to get independence. But the element of that is, in us to understand our history, we have to understand our relationship with the UK. And the UK are our neighbours.
Yep.
That can never change. And
you can't choose your neighbours.
No, we can't. No, but they're there. But they're a very important trading nation for us. And with all that went on, they form an important bloc. But the relationship has to be on equal terms. And it has become that way. And that's because we understand our history better. And I was brought up with British television, British comedy, which fantastic, British music, British football.
Sure.
We 1 minute we're shouting for our local football team, the next minute we won't support England when they're playing in a World Cup or a European Championship. We're supporting. We know everything. We know everything about the UK because we're completely integrated in, and more integrated in ways than we even understand. So that's important. So 35% of our trade is with the UK.
Yep.
They have a big trade with us. So that's important. And we have times when things are not good, but we negotiate around it and come to a resolution. And we develop. And it's almost like family. Sometimes they fall out a bit.
Yep.
But coming up to Brexit, the relationship was absolutely fantastic. The Queen Elizabeth II, fantastic woman. She came to visit Ireland. And she said herself it was one of the best visits she ever had. When she came, there was security around her because we were worried. The first time the Queen ever, a monarchy from the UK, the Queen visited Ireland ever. It's the first time that we had that since our independence, and they were worried. By the end of the time she was there were people all around her, and everyone was mixing together, and that's where it should be. And she was speaking at a state dinner, and she spoke in Irish. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic.
She has Scottish background, right?
She's Scottish background, but it was the speaking of reaching out. And actually, we have a statue, a garden. It's called a Garden of Remembrance that commemorates our leaders that were all executed in 1916. And she went there and she bowed, and that bow was an incredible impact.
Yeah.
And the respect, and that's what it's about. King Charles now, as he is, he loves Ireland. He's over the whole time. We love him visiting, and he's mixing in with that, and that element is good. They're the positives. Politics are a challenge. There's a lot of things going on. They got to work that out themselves, in terms of how they move forward with things. But our relationship is strong. It's going to develop stronger.
Yeah.
There are challenges. But that's the way we got to live our life.
I can see a lot of parallels, right? It's a small nation on the periphery of a great continent. We feel that.
You're a big nation.
Well, I mean, relative to our neighbors like India and China and Indonesia.
Relative. But as I look at maps, from the north of the Philippines to the south of the Philippines, the equivalent of going from Dublin to Prague. I mean, you're big.
Yes. I mean,
and you're the second largest
population. But remember, we're in
Asia.
Asia, where size is, seen in different light. Because I mean, China is way bigger than multiple Europe put together. So definitely, I agree with you. I never thought we're a small country because our population is as big as Mexico. And I always said no one said Mexico is a small country, but the psychological sense,
I agree
right?
With that.
This kind of underdog, traumatized nation. We're trying to heal our wounds from the past, negotiating our relationship with our former colonizer, in our case, the Americans, and the Spanish, of course. So I see a lot of parallels, though. But I want to also understand what explains Ireland's just tremendous efflorescence of literary output. I mean, it's just incredible. And the artistic output. I mean, just the rate of world-class literature. I think they have the highest per capita of Nobel Prize in literature. Where is this coming from? You're not even English. It's like, that's my joke.
But it comes back to your own culture.
Yeah.
The English have amazing writers as well.
Yes.
I mean, in terms
even
of
Iceland too, fantastic.
Yeah,
people.
Iceland, everyone. I mean, there are great writers everywhere. But there is an element of we got to express about our history through our poetry. So if you were to read any of the great Irish poets, they would have an expression of the same with song. Song is extremely important to express, and there's also a lot to if you look at Joyce. Joyce wrote about Ireland when he left Ireland.
Right.
His masterpiece Ulysses was written abroad. He was in Trieste. He was in Paris, and he was in Zurich. And looking back into where he was at, and it captured the essence of Ireland. But he left Ireland because he was horrified by some aspects of it, and yet the only way he could write about it was being abroad. He needed that distance. He needed that distance. Yeah. You're looking at a lot of our great writers, emigrated. They got their books banned in Ireland. That was always a good sign at that time. So they moved there. But it's a cultural thing that goes right back into thousands of years with the way we expressed ourselves. And as we express ourselves while we speak English, our structure is affected by the way Irish is written. So
your prose has a different.
Yeah, I just explained this. There was a great Irish writer called Flann O'Brien, who I don't expect you to know, but absolutely amazing writer. Yeah.
So where's this literary fluorescence coming from? I mean, is it the trauma of your history? Is it specific generation of great writers and artists that passed on the legacy? What's going on there?
I think it's a combination. It probably is, the more difficult environment that people have lived in when they have nothing. We turned to poetry and song, and that helped us explain in a better way how we were feeling. If you would talk to Irish people, sometimes they'll be very, very slow at saying how they are. You say, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm well. Thank you very much. I'm well." And there could be serious things wrong with them. But through the poetry and through literature, you got expressed in a different way. It's like a separation that they could stretch out, and it's a literary nation. Our language, the Irish language, is ways of expressing. So when we had one famous Irish writer, Flann O'Brien, he wrote his books initially in Irish, and he wrote a book called, funnily titled, "At Swim, Two Birds." That's the direct English translation. Gá ein ag snáb is the Irish thing, is the Irish way of saying it, which is the correct way. So the literal translation, "At Swim, Two Birds," means two birds are swimming.
Right.
And that's how he called his book, and it was direct translation. So the way that we represent and the rhythm of our language is quite different. So that marked a difference in terms of how we'd express ourselves, and our humour, because we needed humour. So someone like Oscar Wilde, with great literature thing, despite the tragedy of what he himself went through, when he was seen as came out as gay, and then he got
that was difficult during his time.
And that time was
Edwardian or Victorian era? Edwardian, right? Yeah.
And it was hugely problematic. And then he moved into Joyce, who was very much against the cultural aspects, norms, and around religion and things like that. Yet he had a different way of expressing his religion.
Right.
So you're moving right through to the modern great writers like Seamus Heaney or Roddy Doyle, and you may have heard of him, and there's a good few others. And that also expressed itself into theatre and to Hollywood, as we would have people going through. So it's always there, and there's always good humour, fun. The music is strong. And our traditional music, as my generation growing up, would have been moving a lot towards the pop charts in the UK or in America. But as we became more aware and more confident, we went back to our traditional music, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And also, when groups like U2 came along, I mean, before U2 we had the Boomtown Rats.
Right.
Before the Boomtown Rats, you had Thin Lizzy. These are bands but it changed the culture, the attitude of people to say, well, they can do it.
Yeah, we're
So
global.
we're global.
I mean,
we can
U2
do it.
definitely.
So I remember the day when U2 were number one in the US. I mean, it was headline news.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
The same way like Koreans perhaps felt that BTS topped the charts.
I grew up in the same area as U2, you know.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, wow, you know. Bono, anyone can sing better than Bono.
Yeah, our own guys.
Our own guys, you know, and in Dublin you have to really, really make, because in Dublin if anyone gets high, they try to knock them down again. But it was just that expression of that confidence. The same with sport. We started doing well in sport, globally in sport, and we got this confidence. And
something was switched on.
Something was switched on.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to discuss. I mean, there's the whole Celtic tiger discussion. The Philippines has been seen as the new rising tiger.
Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of problems, but economic growth is very robust between the two countries. What is the state of bilateral relations in terms of economics, in terms of strategic cooperation? I mean, I know you guys are new to the town, but I'm seeing kind of a mutual discovery. We are getting, more appreciative of beyond America and Asia, looking at Europe and other continents. You guys are also looking beyond.
Yeah.
What is the state of bilateral relations?
Well, one, it's very positive, and it can't be otherwise because of, Philippines has been absolutely fantastic. Right. The access I have had since I've arrived here has been phenomenal, and I've worked in other countries, and I can tell you this is special.
The openness, the appreciation.
And the desire to, there's a curiosity.
Yep.
Curiosity on both sides. That this is our job to nurture it, and every opportunity we get to connect the Philippines and Ireland, this is what we do. So we've already the Secretary General of the Department of Foreign Affairs, he came down in November, and he's just fantastic. It's great. He couldn't understand how we had developed it so quickly, which is good for me. But it's because of one, the great staff I have, and two, the willingness, the support of the Filipino government, the Filipino people. Mm-hmm. The second element, we had a minister visit in March, and it's another introduction in that. And now we have one of the most senior ministers of our government coming down in November on a big trade mission.
Right.
So it's slowly building.
Yeah.
I wish it was quicker.
Of course,
I'd like to do a lot more.
Yeah.
But the key element now is to get key people from the Philippines to visit Ireland.
And what about the Filipino community in Ireland?
Filipino community, 0.5% of our population in Ireland
are Filipino heritage.
Are Filipino,
Yeah.
It's incredible. And the majority came in the last 20, 25 years.
Your boom years,
Your boom years, they stayed true. A lot of them came originally around in nursing, and they're all in senior positions. And they're being paid the same as an Irish nurse. If an Irish nurse would be capable to stay there, but they're being paid the same. And the impact they had on the Irish community is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of accountants going in there. We have on aircraft. We have a full spectrum of people, and they can go in not only for their own job, but they can bring their family with them, which is important. And there's a very good network in Ireland with the Filipino community. And it's been recognised by the Irish President, by the Foreign Minister, by the Prime Minister, about how the excellent job the Filipinos did around COVID. And they just go the extra mile.
Yeah.
And it's very related to where the Irish culture is at. It probably reflects where Ireland was about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in terms of the values. But I think it's incredible. And now we want people to go and study in Ireland.
Yeah.
We've had... I met, when I was back in Ireland recently, I met two PhD. They've just finished their PhD in Trinity College in Dublin. One is in the AI sector, the other's in environmental studies. I have no idea what but he was talking to me about his PhD, and I smiled and said, thank you very much. So I have to go back. He's going to come back to the Philippines, which is good. The other person is going to stay in Ireland, which is good for Ireland. But there's a whole opportunity. So we have someone doing their masters in Trinity, in the business school, one of the top business schools.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding.
And he was in there. He was in there 3 months when he got offered a job. That's how quickly it moves.
Because of the sync between labor markets and the educational sector.
Education sector.
And was this like a coordinated national strategy? Are there certain departments over this? What's going on? Or was it a political consensus thing?
It's a whole combination of the politics of the day adapting and changing. That we have to be adapted to the market. Yeah. Markets change. Capital can flow in and out like that.
Yep.
And when we had our crisis in 2008, where in October 2008 our economy went from running to standing still in a 24-hour period. I mean, people were putting a nail in the wall when the economy stopped, and it was a huge impact. But we learned things, and that's the one thing we adapted. And one thing we learned is your reputation it takes a lot to earn your reputation. It takes a nanosecond to lose it, but your reputation is everything, and that. People wanted to see Ireland in a certain light. People were jealous of how successful we were. And they started saying things about us that weren't true. So we learned that we actually had to go out and sell Ireland. Yeah. And sell Ireland and tell them this is what the story really is. And our embassy network had to adapt. We became economists. We became on TV, writing articles, doing everything. But we had to sell Ireland.
Public diplomacy.
But in a way that is... that really had to challenge the orthodoxy of how the Wall Street Journal or others who were writing may have seen us in a certain way.
Sure.
But we had to change that. And to be fair to a lot of the leading papers in Europe and in America, they listened.
Yep.
And we had a very good story to tell despite the challenge that we faced. But we learned as well. I mean, we were it was party central. And people who never knew poverty were really getting on. But we rediscovered we're stronger now because of it. I wouldn't recommend it. I have a friend of mine who not only lost his business, lost his marriage because of the business, the collapse of
the sovereign debt crisis.
Crisis. So we move forward.
I mean, you were part of the pigs, right? Portugal.
Yeah, we were part of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an insult to everyone who they mentioned, but that element of where we are going, we're now. I mean, our GNP is 567 billion. I mean, instead of looking at it, 30 years ago it was something like 100 billion. So we're really insane, really growing, and it's because of our pharmaceutical and our tech firms in there. People challenged us on the 12.5% tax rate, corporate tax rate. They said, no, Ireland's getting too many advantages, and everyone agreed that there would be a tax rate of 15% because they didn't want us to think. Our top firms said to us, our top multinationals said to us, actually that doesn't matter. What matters here is the people.
Yes. And it's not just the tax rates.
The tax rates sure have, but this is the people. And this is the essence to me of what is the Philippines. You have to attract people, but you also have to have the infrastructure to enable them to remain. You also have to have the ability to, as you attract them, to make it really, really good to work there. And that's why they're there. These companies can go anywhere in the world. Dell was in Ireland in 2004. They decided they wanted to go to Poland. They left and 4,000 jobs gone like that. So, you can't take anything for granted, but you have to work to ensure that all aspects of your country reflect the need of what these companies want, and also the need of what the population, what type of people you've educated to provide jobs to do so. But I mean, it's incredible when you look at expansion of our nation, in all the top jobs globally that they're in. Everywhere you look, there's Irish people in very, very senior jobs. I mean, like the regional head of Coca-Cola here is from Ireland. And he's, so you're looking at the way that we have a very strong diaspora, and the other element of learning from the Philippines is the way we use our diaspora, leveraging globally. I mean, look at us, the way we operate in America. We were always politically hot-wired. Yeah, we knew that, and so wherever you go, there's an Irish
You have to
connection.
be organized.
Yeah, but they got into the political system, and that made a huge difference as well. So it's about a journey that's continuous, and I see that the relationship between the Philippines and Ireland, we've a lot to share with each other. Yeah, we have to get to know each other first, and it's about the people-to-people relationship. In Ireland, it's important. I know here it's important to get to know each other, and then through that you have a much more substantial engagement, and it's not about us wanting to get something out of you. share our ideas, and through that you get growth for both sides to win, and the partnership that you want.
And speaking of bilateral relations, I mean, before we go to the defense and in terms of strategic relations, with the trade mission and all, what are the sectors that Irish companies are interested in?
Well, the main sector is in our main export at the moment is beef, and the beef sector represents for Ireland is the Philippines. Our largest market is Europe.
Right.
Our next market is America. The next market after that is China, and then our third market after that is the Philippines.
Right.
It's huge, and it grew, and we haven't even got to the more upmarket meats yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is about recognizing that and growing that market. So we have our Minister for Agriculture coming in, and agriculture is such a central, important part of our.
And for President Marcos Jr. for that matter too. Yeah.
And it's the essence of not only that since the 1850s, we are now exporting, from a country that was in a famine to a country that's exporting 50 times what it needs in that period. It's incredible, and it's about the technology. It's about about the sustainability. I mean, our cattle, they eat grass. It's natural. They're not being fed hormones, and people want to know that, and they want to know what they're eating now.
Yeah, it's important.
We come through a period of being much more mindful of our environment, and in terms of climate, and we look at all the things about our whole renewable areas where we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050. We're looking at the whole ways of improving the environment that we live in, and that goes for the agriculture as well. Yeah. So agriculture is a major export for us, not the largest of export, but the major export, and it generates just short of 19 billion a year in exports.
Right.
Of which the dairy sector is about 6 billion, the beef sector is about 4 billion, and massive money in milk and cheese.
Right.
So we harness that energy from being a poor agricultural nation to being a superb agriculture
from a famine-stricken country
to one that is at the high end. So that element comes to the way that we work, and the modern day farmers and how they work. And one of the major elements, and we haven't talked about this, one of the major elements of the development of Ireland was us joining the European EEC, was called then, European Union. It's been a transformative effect on Ireland. It
positively, I mean,
it's a very positive effect. Some countries like our neighbours unfortunately didn't see that, but we see the importance of. I mean, nearly 80% of the people are very strongly supportive of Europe, and it led to a transformation of our social policies. It led to challenges in our political structure, and it led to economic growth. But we also adapted and saw how to do things.
Yeah.
And we saw that it enabled us to become more confident in how we operate. But the EU, as it is now, is the central platform of our.
How is Ireland navigating, first in terms of your relations with NATO, because you're not part of NATO, but now as you become more global, Ireland, how are you also dealing with, if you're going to be more active in our part of the region, how are you navigating like South China Sea issue, those conflicts?
Well, we totally believe in the international rules order base. I mean, that's just the premise of where we work. And if we look at the agreement reached in 2016, Ireland is extremely supportive of that. The issue is that it has to be negotiated. That moving into this space and where you see what I see at the moment is threatening, and Philippines have the right to challenge and say this is our space, and that's it. I think that's the element in terms of where we're at, because it plays in the broader international sense, because we're internationalists, because we're multilateralists. We see the UN Charter as a framework. It's part of our foreign policy. The UN framework it shapes us how we think about things. And so when things happen where we see what's happening in the South China Sea, it's the West Philippine Sea. It's your area.
Yeah.
This is the limit. And where's the discussion? You have to sort it out.
And how Ireland is contributing to the EU in the Pacific strategy? Are you in a position even to actively contribute?
We contribute to dialogue.
Right.
That's
diplomatic
the
processes.
We don't have a navy that can reach out. I mean, we were very small, a very active navy. The work they do is fantastic.
The North Sea area,
it would be in the Atlantic area and also the Mediterranean Sea and around the areas there.
Green water navy in a sense, yeah.
But we don't have certainly don't have anything there. We have 6 ships, so we're modest. We've a standing army of about 8,000, and there's a big reflection on how we see our navy, our air force, and our army. And when we see them work, because we do a lot of peacekeeping. When I see the army, especially out in peacekeeping operations, I've seen them all around the world. I'm just so proud to see the uniform, and so proud to see what they do. They really do. They're fantastic in the way that they operate in very, very difficult circumstances. But we are military neutral. We don't engage in areas. And
can you explain that more? Because this issue of neutrality, and now in the Philippines you say enemy to, friends to all, enemy to none. Although my joke is that's better for a tourism slogan than a national security strategy. But the discussion of the Philippines being independent, not reflecting just the whims of the superpowers, having its own strategic autonomy. What is the Irish understanding of non-alignment, if you have a version of that? Because you're not part of NATO.
No, we're not part of NATO. We made that decision because we're our neutrality.
Exactly.
We joined the EU. That brought in challenges to the concept of that. But the EU, if they had set up a military force, we wouldn't be part of.
Yep.
It's an ongoing discussion that's in Ireland at the moment. Right now, we're discussing this whole aspect of how we define neutrality. It would be a full show and maybe another show after to explain the history of it. But it's something that we believe that we shouldn't get involved in certain areas. We didn't involve ourselves. We were neutral during World War II.
Yep.
Much the chagrin of Winston Churchill, who felt that we should be part of it, but that's the decision we made. Like Sweden, we separated from that. And it's something that exists, that it's part of our DNA where we say that we're neutral from that. So if you talk to Irish people, they say, no, we're neutral. But we're now unpacking what that word means.
Yep, exactly.
And it's a journey. We have to reflect on what's happened with Sweden and Finland joining NATO.
Yeah, they were neutral for a long time, yeah. Is the war in Ukraine kind of changing your calculus?
The war in Ukraine has come in. I mean, the war in Ukraine is a tragedy. I mean, we're very strong. So we've made decisions. We're supporting aggressively NATO's and Europe's position in relation to the war there.
Yeah.
That the war should stop. Russia should withdraw all forces to the international borders that have been agreed with regard to Ukraine, and they just leave. It just stops. So we've been very, very strong. Our stance has been fantastic in that sense. So we are making decisions that will come in. So we're using the word military neutrality now. So it's
so you could be diplomatically more tilting.
Well, we are sending non-lethal equipment to the Ukraine. Now you could have a long discussion with me, and we have to go unpack that even further.
Yeah, what's non-lethal?
But we have to understand better that in terms of where we're at, we're in this world that is changing. That we have to view where we're at, and we could actually make more radical views. Say this is who we are, and we're not going to do anything. But the issue is that it's like when we looked at our concept of what it meant to be Ireland. We have these debates. We have these citizens' assemblies that where we talked about the whole issue. Any change in the constitution has to go to a referendum.
Right.
So we have to have these discussions and go through that, which I think is very, very useful. So it may lead in the direction of a discussion to see how we understand it better. But we have to have these discussions, and I think I like the idea of neutrality, but I think the world is changing around us. That may lead to maybe we need to further define it better to enable us to state better what we mean by neutrality.
Kind of a neutrality for the 21st century. Thank you for that. The more we discuss, the more we need other separate episodes on that. So we hope to have you later on down the road. But where do you want to see the Philippines and Ireland Irish bilateral relations going? What are the key areas, if there are top 3 things you want to see in the next few years as you stay here?
Well, I see the first thing to see our relationship develop.
Yeah.
That there will be a much stronger political relationship. There'll be a much stronger technical relationship, business to business. And there'll be a much stronger people relationship, people to people, around our culture and our histories. And Philippines has the advantage in that because you have 25,000 Filipinos in Ireland. So you got that straight. You got a big head start. But I think that's something that we would want to see. So trade is going to be important.
Yeah.
I think the reach out of education, if they want to they're going to study, really, one of the best places to study is in Ireland.
Right.
Fantastic courses that are very geared towards the employment market, and there's a vibrancy in all sectors. Whether you look at for example, in the film sector, where in production of cartoons, one of the best areas is happening in Ireland now, and it's happening in Dublin.
Right.
And they're up for Oscars. Who would have heard that years ago? Of course, then you have right now, as you speak, Cillian Murphy. Who's.
What do you think about? I mean, the Peaky Blinder. I think.
You see, I that may have helped. Everyone talks about Peaky Blinders. I have never watched it, so and I have to watch it. I mean, Cillian Murphy. I've seen him in a lot of other productions that he's been involved with. But Peaky Blinders, I must watch it. I was watching one thing one night, so I'm not too sure about this, and I never went back to it.
Yeah.
But I must. I can get it on Netflix.
You just have to be patient of it, few episodes, I think. And there's a constant reference to their Irish background, the sense of being an underdog. They have to prove themselves.
Yeah.
And as Filipinos, we can relate very much to that.
But the element you can't, and that's the thing from where we started at. It's no use harping on about the past.
Yeah.
If you haven't addressed the past, you need to move forward. Yeah. And history is history. It tells us a story.
Right.
But we have to understand that history and move forward.
Did you watch this Oppenheimer?
I want to. I'm going to go to it. I need to get a very warm sweater to go into the cinema. I'd love to watch it. I actually read that book, so I know
Prometheus, American Prometheus,
which is it's both amazing, sad, and you look at the whole culture. But I hear that a lot of people, as they use the different phrases, are arguing about the movie and about what it's about, and that's good. It brings debate in terms of that. But I really like to see it, and I'm delighted. I think Cillian Murphy's a great actor, and he has to. He's such an amazing role, and
it would be okay. Irish playing a next James Bond too.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he'd want that. That's not his style.
Yeah. But after Peaky Blinders, I think anything goes.
Well, he could do anything. He was in a great movie called Wind That Shakes the Barley.
Right.
And I was so saddened by that movie because that's about Civil War.
Yep.
And he had a bad end. He was executed at the end of that. Maybe it's but it's
spoilers.
A spoiler alert. Spoiler. Don't listen. But it really captured well, what Ireland was about then, and that's what good cinema does.
Times,
it lets you understand better, who you are.
It shocks you into truth.
It shocks you into the truth, and families are split for generations.
Makes sense. And last, what about another, let's say, grandson of Ireland, President Biden? He had a homecoming not long ago.
He did.
And suddenly made a lot of us realize that explains a lot of Biden's charm. I mean, there's just something avuncular and charming about him. Well, he's just a second Catholic American president, right? After JFK and JFK, Irish, of course, another Irish.
Yeah. JFK's, we've had 5 Irish American presidents, including Barack Obama, which we claimed.
Oh yeah, but Scottish too, right?
No. He nothing to no.
That's
Irish,
just Irish.
His part on one side.
Because he says Scottish too. I mean,
No. Well, I mean, everyone claims. But that's part of our political heritage too.
Yeah.
And President Biden came over, and he has, he's very pro-Irish, and it's nice. But you got to work at that. You can't assume that things are continuing. Everything could change in November 24. It's not just about the president; it's about the whole political structure, Congress and Senate, and the rest of it. So that's important, and that's the other element we need to get is the parliaments. I'll go back to your American side in a minute, but the parliaments need to connect better.
Correct.
Your Senate and Congress, I'd love to get those connect with the Irish Parliament and getting to know each other, because you can learn a lot from seeing people.
Yeah.
some of our parliamentarians have a really interesting background, and they'd be from rural Ireland, so you're learning different things about the culture that you may not see as you're watching and looking inside of different people who, like Cillian Murphy or other people who are very famous, or reading about Joyce or whatever. That's to get to know the country. So visits are important.
On that note, thank you very much, Ambassador. It's been a pleasure. I mean, I realize we can go on and on. Perhaps we can have a separate podcast for 4 hours. That's the thing I like about talking to you.
I'd be delighted. And if we have people in, we maybe have a chat with the opportunity to talk. I think that's very good. But I think so. Thanks very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much. So catch us again next week here on One News. You can also check out the long conversation on Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. I'm Richard Haydarian, and that is The View from Manila, where One News, all sides, all the time.